Do you hear me?
What's up, guys? Yes, we do hear Exalt. I had to mute you there. We're, as you guys know, we were having some webcam issues, but I think we're all good to go now. Fortunately, I'm glad you guys stuck around. Sorry for the delay. All right, so this is the Mafia Championship podcast, the 4th episode. This is the second time we'll be doing a game post-mortem / game analysis / game discussion. We, of course, have some guests with us today. We have 4 players from Game 2, and not least, we have Lisa, main organizer of this season, with us to reveal the votes. For the very first time, the votes will be revealed live on this stream. And I see we have a lot of people following Twitch chat, so that's very exciting. Hello, it's good to see you guys, as always. Status on the championship, we're about halfway through the qualifier stage. Games 5 and 6 are running right now, and Game 7 will be branded, I think, later today or later tonight, and we'll be starting in about a day's time from now. But what we'll be talking about today is Game 2. Game 2, so far, the only game to result in a Mafia sweep. All 3 Mafia members survived that game. Yeah, we have one of them with us today. We have Rhand, who survived the game, along with Nano4 and KV. Congratulations on a well-deserved victory. And we'll be hearing more about how you secured that victory later on. Yeah. Guys, you can unmute yourselves. What's up, everyone? All right. So first, let's just do a quick trip around the table, as I like to say. Have everyone give a short introduction of themselves, and like how you got into Mafia, how long you've been playing, and like how you found yourself in this Mafia Battle Royale. Let's start with Rhand, one of the victors of this game.
Yeah, so I come from MTG Salvation, which is a Magic site, and Magic is then obviously how I rolled into Mafia. I just played Magic, and I was using that website, and I saw the sub forum about Mafia, was interested, and I just started. Yeah. They have actually a good system with mentors, so the first games you play, someone is there helping you out, learning the game, and that's got me into it, and I'm still there. 8 years now, I think. Yeah.
8 years, awesome, almost a decade. So you're well experienced.
Almost, yeah, decently.
Yeah. All right, and Exalt, our late arrival. Very good. We can see your face. We actually thought that we were going to be doing this without your face, but fortunately, your face is here. And what a magnificent face, Exalt. And tell us about your career, your Mafia career, and how you found yourself here.
I think I started in around 2003. I know it was around early 2000s, long time ago. On my home site, actually, Trench Wars forums, which is like one of the oldest games on the internet, actually. It's like a 2-day spaceship game, but it's had leagues and things for a long time. So the forums were very active, and everybody would go on it so much they just started playing, forum games like every other one does, and Mafia became a thing. We used Mafia Scum's rules at the time, and that's pretty much how we all learned. And so I joined that site sometime in the early 2000s too, under various names.
How many games have you played?
I have no idea. Hundreds, I guess. Wow. Yeah.
All right. So also a lot of experience there. And of course, repping your community here for the first time participating in community. That's very exciting. Glad you decided to join the series.
Yeah.
All right. And just playing it cool. As I recall it, a late sub into a pre-game sub into the series, because the person was actually supposed to represent you guys decided to drop out. And you stepped up, and I think a lot of the spectators, me included, are happy about that. You certainly brought a lot of whim to the game, as people like to say, wanted more, a lot of passion to the game. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I got into Mafia around 8 years ago. Well, it was around when Pokemon Black and White 2 were first released. And I was quite a visitor of the forum Neoseeker, and I was using that forum for like game information trading and all that battles. And I saw a thread here called the Evil Zoroark game, and it was for the Mafia with the Zoroarks and the Shed Ninjas for the town members, and it was just like a basic setup of, you had your doctors, your vigilantes, and all that, and it just grew from there. Eventually, the Mafia side in the Pokemon forums just died, so then I moved over to the interactive role-playing forums, which we've had a few members in the past seasons, and I hear there's like a Neoseeker curse where we always end up dying on day one or night one. So I was here to break that curse.
And break it you did. So that's yes. That's good. Mission accomplished. All right. Moving on to TheWabbit, who I just found out 1 or 2 days ago. I have actually contacted before to invite his another community of his to participate in the Mafia Championship. And that's funny to me how the Mafia world sometimes is small. But yeah, you didn't. That community didn't end up playing that year. But you ended up playing, fortunately, on behalf of Town of Salem. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm 18. Started playing Mafia around 2016. And as far as hobbies go, I just mainly use Mafia as my pastime. And I think I have around 100 games, so I'm not yet that seasoned.
But 100 foreign games?
Yeah, 100 matches for Mafia.
Yeah, no, that's still a lot of experience.
Okay. As far as getting into champs, I'm not really sure how I became the rep, because maybe it's because of how unconventional my playstyle is compared to other people there. But I think it was a unique experience overall.
Well, unique is good. It certainly is unique. All right. So those are the introductions, and we'll be talking way more with these guys. I know you guys are very excited about what's about to happen next. And before I'm gonna draw this out for 1 minute, because I want everyone in Twitch chat, because there was a delay, so I suspect that many people tuned out. So if you guys could do me a favor and link this in whatever chat you are, and just tell them that right now the vote reveal is gonna happen. And they have to see these people's faces. Maybe someone's souls will be crushed, or their hearts will be crushed. This is like the Oscar reveals, where they're showing everyone on screen, and you really want to see how they're gonna take it, and then it's gonna be, oh yeah, I'm so happy for him or her. Yeah, it'll be exciting to see the reactions. But yeah, all right, I can't stall much longer. Even though that is the slow rolling of the reels, it's actually what I'm known for. I know Alyssa adapted at least.
I try to do it justice.
Yeah. I saw some good slow rolls last year. I appreciate that. Bring on the thingy man spirit. But yeah, without further ado, Lisa is about to reveal the votes for game 2. And I'll let you take it away. I don't know if you have anything planned or any special way you can do this, but take it away, Lisa.
I don't really know how to slow this down on video without it just being really awkward. So I'm going to go quicker, a fair bit quicker than I typically do. 11 people received votes in this game. 5 of them received first place votes. The point distribution was 61 points for first place, then 38 points, then 34 points, then 26, then 17, then 12, then 6, 5, 3, 3, 2. I did get votes from everyone in this game. In fourth place with 26 points is Ephemera from Poke Beach.
That's a lot of points for fourth place. That's
yeah.
Yeah. But congrats to Ephemera. Very nicely done.
In third place with 34 points is KV from Dominion Strategy.
One of the winning Mafia members. Congrats to KB.
Yes. In second place with 38 points and advancing to the semifinals is TheWabbit from Town of Salem.
Congratulations, Webbit.
Thanks.
And in first place with 61 points, which I believe is currently a record for 15-player games. So previous 15-player games had smaller ballots, so I think it's still extremely high. They were on every player's ballot but their own. And in first place with 61 points and advancing to the semifinals is Rhand from MTG Salvation.
The Flying Dutchman, Rhand.
I'm not Dutch, I'm Belgian.
Oh, Belgian. Whatever.
Same thing.
Same thing, yeah. Right, the Flying Waffle, Rhand. Congrats, Rhand. That's a very impressive showing. It's a very impressive showing.
I'm amazed, to be honest. I didn't expect this going into this game.
That's it's very well done. Yeah. I don't think the rest of us are with knowledge of your community, and also know some people had high expectations of you. So I don't think we're that surprised. But it's always difficult to predict how these games are going to go. So very well done on that. So we'll be seeing 2 of you guys in the semifinals, at least, at a minimum. Of course, for those who don't know, there are 11 qualifiers, and 2 people are advancing from each of those based on post-game player votes. So 22 people will advance based on their fellow players voting them through, and then an additional 23 people will be advanced by the jury. So there are still many spots up for grabs. All right, Lisa, I want to say thanks to you for joining us and doing the first ever vote reveal. That was very exciting. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm gonna head out now then, since I didn't really follow this game too closely. Wasn't in it.
I can attest to the fact that being an organizer is a very demanding job. So Alyssa is very excused for not having followed the game that closely. All right. See you, Alyssa. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm gonna see if I can. Yeah. Boom. Smooth transition. All right. So reactions to the voting results. TheWabbit, did you expect it?
Not really. I'm thinking that I could go third or second, maybe even fourth. But yeah, really accelerated that I reached, and it's me being awake on 4 a.m. and being caffeinated hours ago that I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to feel right now.
It's very good. I also want to make clear I didn't know these results, so it's not that like I invited you 2 guys on the podcast because I knew you were advancing anything. I had no idea. Rhand, basically setting a record maybe in terms of how many players to vote something. At least very impressive showing. I guess we already got a reaction from you. Like, how do you think the guys back home are like, yeah, we expected this, or how will they react?
I don't know. I have no idea, and I don't see any of them in the chat, so I guess they all didn't turn up. So I don't know if they expected this. I didn't, so I doubt it. Although, yeah, I've been named as a representative in earlier years, but because of my job, I never could. So this year I thought, okay, oh, I see Echo, yeah, Echo new Rhand with credits, yeah, cool. But yeah, no, I'm surprised. I got this. I mean, I knew before this podcast that I was probably going to be in the top 2 just because of the reactions I've read before. But yeah, I wasn't expecting any of this. No, it's just such a different thing than my home site.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm amazed. Yeah.
One thing I also want to say, some behind the scenes info here, is that I create a chat for each of these podcasts with the guests involved, and this has been the chattiest group of people so far. Like I have to always scroll up to find out what all you guys were chatting about. So I'm also excited to be talking more to you guys. Just playing it cool and Exalt. I don't know if like this is a touchy subject because of course you participate in these games hoping to like advance and get votes here. But I don't know what were expectations, and did you well, I know everyone voted for Rhand, but yeah, your thoughts on the voting?
I was sort of expecting Armin 94 to go through, to be honest, just from his bio, but no, I mean, no,
yeah, he was a spec chat meme. Yeah.
yeah, Armin shout out, obviously. So I'm not surprised by the top two, to be honest. I voted Rhand number one and TheWabbit second, but yeah, it was pretty obvious, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I think the top four, even it was pretty much what I expected. I didn't see anything. I'm not surprised. I think KV and Wabbit were the two vying for the top two that I thought maybe either one could get it. But other than that, it's pretty much what I thought would be what would happen.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's also good. Sometimes these votes can get a bit controversial, but this might have been one of the more predictable ones, I guess. Judging from people's reactions, and certainly the result with Rhand suggests in itself that everyone agreed on that. All right, let's not dwell on that too much more. It's time to talk game two. And I think what I actually want to ask you guys first, because this also relates to what we were just talking about, the post-game voting and this being a tournament. So unlike a regular game of Mafia, the game isn't as self-contained because, of course, you should play, I believe, every game with the intention to win and do the best you can for your alignment. But in this context, you're also playing to impress your fellow players and move on, or at least some people take that into account. So that's my question. Did you play this game like you would play a normal game of Mafia, or did you change it up somehow? Did you adapt, or yeah? Anyone can take this.
I did at the start, because back in my home site, we just we wouldn't take day one that seriously. But then I got a lot of backlash for that, which I can understand now. But at the time, I was like, well, I'm not really taking it that seriously. But when people were just getting like, oh, come on, pull your finger out, then I just started, okay, fine, I'm playing this properly.
For me, it was a very, very different game than what I'm used to, because we have phases that last for weeks, months sometimes. I mean, no, months is exaggerated, but we go weeks sometimes, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for one phase. And now I have 3 days. So it was a very, very different game, and I had to adjust. There was just no way out of that. I'm used to making maybe 2 posts a day. Now I had to make, 50 posts a day. It's crazy. I invented a system as Mafia to keep myself busy, because as Town, there's just stuff to do. Everyone's posting and you can just find stuff to do. As Mafia, I was like, well, how am I going to do this? And then you might have noticed, the ones playing with me, that in the first day, I didn't really post that much. I just didn't know what to do. And then I came up with an idea, which I think is actually great for every Mafia game. I made myself mini quests. It's like I was forming a town core, for example. I had Exalt in there very quickly. I added GPIC, TheWabbit was in there, Ephemera came in there. I was trying to add Kari in there, and I was like, okay, this is my town core, and those people need to think I'm town, and all think that they are town, so that together we are going to win this game, And then I saw at one point Keith making his way into that core, and I'm like, no, Keith, you're a mislynch. You're not getting into this core. So I made a mini quest for myself to push Keith out of that core. So whenever any of the town core members I selected would add Keith, I would talk to them and like, are you sure this is a good reason to add this guy? Shouldn't you maybe reconsider, without calling Keith scum, but just making sure that he wasn't added to the town core? And these mini quests kept me busy. I just kept adding more and more of those little things to keep engaged in the game without taking too much attention to myself.
I'm very fascinated by that, actually. I think some of the elements in that strategy actually plays well with what I call powerwolfing, and I wrote an article in MU that some of you may know. But like, first and foremost, like being motivated and motivating also yourself and your fellow teammates, I think is one of the strongest virtues you can have as a Mafia wolf. once you reach a level, often new players to the game are like, oh, I want to be Mafia. I want to try that. They're so excited. But then once you become more experienced at the game and play a lot of games, some people dread being Mafia because, oh, you have to lie and actually also want to hunt for Mafia. That's more fun. And I can be honest, so it's not like stressful. Some people have that approach. But like, I like the aspect of setting concrete goals and being very mindful about what you want to achieve as Mafia, because I think a lot of people, very many people, the majority of people when playing Mafia, they and I want you other guys' thoughts on this as well, whether you agree with this or whether this is something you do. They just kind of go with the flow. Like they mostly focus on making themselves unlynchable, trying to dodge the lynch or just fly on the radar or just like present a case because that's what you got to do. And like you try to get some votes on that. But I don't think a lot of people actually like set concrete goals for themselves and their team within like an end game or the next day and the day after in mind, like sort of a chess game. So I admire that, like looking ahead in that regard. And I think that's something a lot of people can learn something from.
Yeah, the first time I tried this particular, really focusing on it, and yeah, it worked like a charm.
Indeed, it did. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if any of you guys have comments on what I just asked, but also if any of you guys just have thoughts on whether you played this game differently, Exalt and TheWabbit, compared to how you would usually approach a game.
So on surface level, I think that I played differently this game. However, I still think I stuck to my core in which I maximize thinking ahead and then just being impulsive, which kind of happened, especially on day 2 with Just Playing It Cool, where I just I just reached an argument and then just thought that, oh, maybe this has come, what could go wrong and stuff. And as far as playing, I think I'm relatively tame, because if you could see me on my home side, I would probably go rambling about repeatedly saying the word peon, and it has basically became my catchphrase. And then basically I also think that I didn't play my best because I was just overwhelmed with the excessive wall posting. I mean, there's a single post, it's a lot of paragraphs which could be summarized into a sentence or something, and then it became a habit of everyone posting those walls that it became harder to distinguish. It's harder to find what their main point is, and it basically slowed down my gameplay in terms that I only felt like playing the game on end of the days.
Yeah, I think that's something that happens surprisingly a lot in the championship series is the wall post. And I think like every season, I feel like a majority of people in each game dislike it. But it's not a majority of people who refrain from making wall posts. So I think there's an element of, well, it seems like this is the standard that's being set, and I sort of also have to do this, and there's so much to go through. And so I think without everyone actually wanting to do it, I think it sort of happens anyway. I'm not sure if you guys would agree with that, or if you like caught yourself falling into that trap as well. Because
I definitely did.
Yeah, because I think, and maybe that's some advice to give to future games or future players, is that, yeah, I mean, the key here is always you want to, one, no matter your role, you want to have people trust you. And 2, you want to have other people notice what you're saying, because that way you're having impact on the game, and you want them to react to it or do something. Like a lot of people just make a big wall post and they spend an hour on it, and if no one reads it, then what the hell was that for, right? Like I think actually if you measure the amount of hours wasted in these games, it's a massive amount. So yeah, there's something to be learned from that. Like being more succinct and at least summarizing or having conclusions at the end of your post. I know that's something I like to do. I never do like a big reread or a meta read or a meta dive on someone without ending the post with a conclusion. For those of you who don't want to read this, which is most of you, here's what I took from that. And that's what I think you can take from that. Yeah.
I must say what KV just said is true in the chat. As Mafia, wall posts are amazing because, first of all, keeping on quoting other people people's wall posts, what she's saying to do really helps you, because people just start skimming over posts. It's too much, too much, too much, and you miss stuff in between. And on top of that, what I did in this game is you start making wall posts once in a while, and people don't read them anyway. You just know you can. Yeah, it costs a lot of time, but it makes you hide in plain sight. It's a cool tactic for Mafia if the town is doing it as well. So please, town, keep on doing it in case to Mafia.
Well, if you ran Mafia, you want people to keep doing it. Right. All right. And Exalt, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to this?
I mean, with the wall post or the just how do I normally play?
Both, either. Yeah.
I mean, wall posts are fine to a certain extent in the mid game. I do not like start of the game wall post, and I don't like start of the day wall posts. I feel like anything just done at night, it doesn't need to happen. Nobody cares. Like it messes with the flow of the game because you find out if you're alive or not, for one thing. Like you could just die, and all that, everything you've written was worthless. But besides that, nobody's gonna read it. Nobody cares. Like it's like a start of a new day is a new flow, and I feel like wall post at the very beginning just messes with it. It just ruins it. And the start of the game wall posts, like obviously I was the one that that went on that pretty hard at first. I feel like it's manufactured. It's not real. Like it's just too try hard for me. I don't see the point of it, I guess. I feel like if you're town, you just join and you play however however it is. You don't have to think it through. Like I get that Scum, they have to make a plan. They play the long game because you have to, and you already know who's who. So you pretty much have to line up what you're going to do before you do it. But as town, you don't know anything. Like a new flip can change all your reads or ruin everything you thought you knew about the game immediately. So you can't really make a plan like that. All you can do is just go with what you see and react. So I feel like any start of the day posts like that, it just no point. Also, massive quote posts doesn't work on a phone. Can't read it.
Yeah. I guess one thing to be said, of course, not about start of the game or stuff, but some wall posts, or some of those big ass posts. One function they can serve, and they certainly do for me sometimes, is just to gather thoughts for yourself. So like rather than dumping them in a Word document on your desktop, you might as well post it in the game, right? Unless you think you have something to hide or whatever. So I mean, maybe there's that benefit to it, right? Just to bring up the other side of it. But I know that's mostly not why people are doing it. All right. So to this game, it was a Mafia sweep. So I don't, but I also don't want to be results oriented here, right? But if we're just, but there were still, of course, elements in the game that led to that defeat happening for the town. Why do you guys think it ended the way it did? Did town play poorly? Did Mafia just outplay or outperform town? Or was it a combination of both?
It was definitely a combination of both. With town, we had an issue where a lot of our big characters were headstrong and they just clashed with each other. We had Exalt versus Carry. We had Exalt versus ICT. We had everybody was at each other's throats as town. That was the issue we had. And then we also had the issue with lurkers who just weren't posting in the game at all. And then that did not help, especially in day 4, where I think it was just me and Carrie that were posting at the time, who were town. When we had I think 6 town members alive, trying to push a KV Lynch who pretty much slipped at that point, but we couldn't get that through. And then Mafia just played a phenomenal game. Rhand probably played the best Deep Wolf game I've ever seen.
Wow.
So yeah, we were screwed from the start.
I'm going to quote the chat, by the way. Speaking of that, Teleshar wrote, I think the game was lost at Rand.
That's terrible.
Well played. I love it. Love the puns. I will always reward the puns. actually, Rand, from your perspective as Mafia, how did you feel it go?
Yeah, it was definitely both. I mean, there were so many situations that were easy for us to prey on. Yeah, especially the lurking. The lurking was just so bad all through the game that it became easy to just mislynch people because they weren't there. They weren't there to defend themselves. They just let it happen. And yeah, if you have all those targets to mislynch, it becomes pretty easy to be on the good side of all the town members because the ones you want to lynch aren't there to be angry at you to want to lynch them. So yeah, it made my game easier. I mean, yeah, I'm hoping it's both. I hope I also did a good job, but I'm sure that it would have been harder if the lurking didn't happen, and the toxicity was also, yeah, playing in our ball camp a bit.
And we're going to be talking more about the clashes and the toxicity. So we're going to be returning to that. I agree as a general rule that it always has to be both. Like when a crushing victory or crushing defeat, however you want to say it, happens, because like for a town to self implode, and let's just not necessarily say that what's happened, but if we're saying that's what happened, the town self imploded, like the Mafia has to also have the skills, and it can require a lot of skill to like guide town in that direction and not be caught in that explosion themselves, right? So there's also a lot of skill to that, and like, and they have to also like be appearing sane and like good contributing players, and like, oh, we have these solid players, and then we have these clashing players, and then we have these inactive players. And like, what's going to happen in that environment? A lot of the time, the Mafia is going to excel, right? If they're amongst those solid contributing players, and then we can just guide all direction on the other pool of players. Because, I mean, I guess in some sense, you also maybe, and I don't know if you guys agree with this actually, if that happened in this game. I know it can happen in some games. Sometimes you find yourselves thinking, I just have to believe that this guy's town, because if this guy's not town, we've lost anyway. And like, if you're setting yourself into that position as Mafia, I think that's like a very good position to set yourself into. Like, if people just think, well, man, Rand, I just need Rand to be town. Like, I just need him to be town. Otherwise, we're screwed anyway. I don't know if you guys agree that is what happened. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah,
Also,
I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Rand kind of have the whole town around around their finger at that time, and both the game and Spectre are just hoping that he's down so that there's no more problem.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so continuing from that question, seeing how this game ultimately played out, do you have any regrets? Like, if you could have a redo, and of course you don't know the roles, but you still, you take it with you in your soul and your heart. You know how this game played out. Would you do anything different? Do you have any regrets if you could go back? Or
Yes.
alternately, have you learned something that you would implement in the semifinals if you advance there? And of course, some of you already have.
Well, I mean, it's hindsight is helpful, but in the game specifically, in day 5, I should have just voted KV right there and then, but I didn't at the start of day 5 because we were in Lilo and I wanted, everyone else to post just to give everyone a chance. And then Keith said he wanted to make the decision on the phone. I was like, okay, fine, let's see what happens. And then he ended up voting Bryster, who was also in my, who knows, maybe could be scum, I don't know. And then Rand, who I had a town read on, voted and joined as well. I was thinking, okay, 2 votes on, I might as well join. And then turned out we lost the game.
And that's actually, I think that's very good that you bring that up, because I think that's a good lesson there. And I've been in that situation several times before, where I knew, the same as Rand probably knew, I have the power here in a Lyle situation. I know if I plop my vote down this person, the other guys will have to follow because they have this read on me. So I guess Rand correctly saw the power he had there to make a certain lynch happen.
Well, no, it was actually different because Keith already voted the town. I didn't need my power anymore. Keith was the one initiating the vote.
Yeah.
I was thinking about voting ICT early because that would have been what I thought the winning play, because then it's between me and IC, and looking at just playing it cool, I just knew he would not vote me over IC.
Yeah.
But then again, I thought, well, doing that is risky because KV also told me in Scumshot it's dangerous because it's not Rand, it's not what I have been doing the whole game. It's different person all of a sudden voting this quickly. So yeah, I didn't. I just all I did was trying to convince just playing it cool not to vote yet by putting a lot of flack on ICT so that he was less sure of voting KV.
Yeah. I think I might agree with KV there that it could have been a risk. Like, and also just the fact that you're forcing yourself into a 1v1 where the other person, you're giving ICT the information that you're Mafia there. And ICT could potentially do a lot with that. Like, they know their town. They're gonna go freaking hard in the paint because the game's online, right? And suddenly you're up against that. And you weren't up against that before, so you maybe don't need to put yourself in that situation with that sort of pressure. I'm going to say it in marks because, of course, you were perceived to be more towny. Speaking of ICT, one of my favorite quotes from the game, I hope you spill your goddamn tea. I like that a lot. Quite enjoyed that. Yeah, I don't know if any of you other guys, Exalt or Wabbit, had any regrets from the game, or if you're no regrets.
Day 2, or actually no, it was day 1, end of day 1. I think Mendel subbed in that day, and what I regret was allowing it to get to me, because the way I saw it was Town kind of had a Lynch or 2 setup. We all kind of agreed, the Town core did, and then Mendel subbed in immediately, and he basically just chainsaw defense Carrie for no, Carrie's Town. She's my ally. Carrie ally me, and it bothered me because he said he barely read anything. Like he read like one ISO. I mean, I didn't expect him to be able to, because he replaced it at the deadline, but I felt like it was derailing the game at the time, because I felt like there's no way he can have a read like that that strongly on day 1 when he didn't even read the game yet or have a chance to. So that kind of set me off on him, and I feel like had I known his meta more and how he plays and how he gets to those reads, I would have backed off and just let him do his thing. And I feel like the game wouldn't have been derailed so much. Like, I feel like day 3 was derailed at least half the day for that. And the whole situation kind of spiraled out of control until he was out of the game. And by then it was, half the town was dead. So if I could do it over again, I think I would have just let it go and saw what happened. So, just see what happens instead of kind of jumping at it immediately, at least.
Yeah. How about you, Wabbit? Any regrets?
My only regret so far is that I didn't post enough, and I was stuck on catching up. That I didn't really get to be there live and see things unfold myself. And yeah, otherwise I think I did fine.
Yeah. Cool. Well, the voters agree with you, obviously. All right. I also want to say we have some questions, actually, both from Mendel and Carrie. We'll be getting to those. And if anyone else has questions, you can just post them right here in Twitch chat, and I'll try to get to them. We all spent a lot of time, so I hope we can get to everything on our agenda. And I don't want to just focus on the bad stuff, because this was a Mafia sweep. And I think I've also already seen some positivity in the post game with like letting it go and also realizing, well, this is what happened, and then also some stuff in the other direction. But I want to focus right now on the positive stuff, because even the best town can lose game, and the best player is certainly never going to win all of their games. Like, that's just not going to happen, right? So I don't want to be results oriented here. So on that note, and on a note of positivity, is there another play in this game, one from your own alignment, that you would like to compliment, and for what? And anyone can take this.
I mean, Rand's pocketing of me, like it just
He's
flew over my head.
Well, I know you thought he was down, but I meant someone from your actual alignment in the game.
Oh, I mean, I thought the Wabbit's analysis of everyone's posts was perfect. To be honest, like I
Thanks.
could tell, I could tell this person knows what they're talking about, and because I was slight town reading him at the time. I made a badly phrased joke, and then he caught me up on it. But and that's what made me think, oh, okay, he's definitely town. But yeah, I just like knowing just knowing how someone's phrased it badly, basically, when no one else has brought it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one's a stretch.
About you, Exalt, Wabbit, or Rand?
What
Give
about?
out. Yeah. Go ahead, Exalt. Come on. You want some compliments to your fellow players.
Repeat the question.
If there's anyone from your alignment, so any of your fellow townie players that you would like to compliment for any aspect of their game.
I mean, besides Rand, I think the entire Scum team played well, obviously.
But you weren't Scum, Exalt.
Okay, the Wolfies. I think they all played well. I think they all did their part perfectly. Even Nano, I know he was a very low poster, lurked a lot, but when he did post, it was very towny. Like it just looked that way. And I know I saw Rand basically throw him a bone, defending him using ISO on his home site, which was actually true, which I didn't think could possibly work otherwise. I thought Rand was town because of that. But I mean, besides the Scum team, I think Wabbit obviously played well. I had him town red from early day one. Never really wavered on that. JPIC played very well too. After the very beginning, he kind of flipped a switch and just got straight into it and became like extremely towny from there. Who else? I mean, everybody played well in their own way. And everyone made mistakes too. So it's kind of difficult to say like this player played that much better because everybody made the mistakes and everybody played well too. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we're also going to get back to this later, I think, but it's also, this is difficult environments playing because you're playing with people you haven't played with before. And when you're not playing with friends, you're less likely to forgive them for anything that might annoy you in that moment. Like most people, when they play Mafia, when they get into Mafia, at least for Mafia, they're already part of a forum where they are friends with these people, having a pre-existing relationship. So when they play Mafia with them, if they say something annoying, you might still get annoyed, but you both know, well, you're still friends outside of this, right? And I know I believe this also a thing you posted post-game Exalt, that like things that are in the game stay in the game, right? And I think that's also a healthy attitude to have. Yeah. Wabbit, you want to hand out any compliments to your fellow players?
Actually, I can't choose a single person to compliment because I think everyone did their part. For Ephemera, they did a great job in trying to keep town together the time they were alive. And then as for Exalt, I like their aggressiveness. However, I think that could be toned down a bit since sometimes it gets too tunnely. And then I'd also like to commend ICT for their day one start. However, I do think that they've burned out. Especially, I think they said it's because I pointed it out that they're trying to be pompous on purpose. And then also I'm just playing it cool for basically doing better as the game goes on. I mean, from day one, I thought that he's going to be something like the low posters, but then the sudden boom in activity starting day two, it was a good direction. And then, yeah, Carrie did also nice in a way. Although the one that I remember the most is their arguments with Exalt, but I think as the day went on, they pretty much had their own ground, which is nice. And then for Keith, they were really positive. However, I think that they're a bit disconnected to the game. And then for Chrysler, I think I could say the same.
That's good. A lot of compliments. You're a nice guy, Webbit. Thanks. Also want to know you guys' favorite moment or the most memorable post in the game. I don't know if any of you guys have anything in mind.
Can I just praise?
Oh yeah, of course,
a bit
Rhand.
before?
Of course, Rhand. Yeah, of course.
I was waiting my turn there, but no, I mean it's all very nice that I'm voted first with so many votes and stuff, but KV was really a huge part of this. It's she was huge, really. You should read Mafia Chat if you haven't, because she's just a cheerleader. It's amazing. I mean, every time I felt like, oh fuck, things are going wrong, she was there to just cheer, and it gave me that mood that I needed to be posting again. Because on my home site, I'm used to being able to walk away from the game for hours and hours and then come back when I'm feeling better. Here, that's not an option. And KV was just there cheerleading like no tomorrow. And the way we worked together was just amazing. She's this chaotic floating pigeon in the thread, and I'm always worried about consistency. And those two completely opposite views are just an amazing melting pot of a Mafia game. I loved it. I love working with KV. And I mean, I'm gonna sign up for a game on her site, and I just hope it all come again together, because it was just amazing. Yeah. Amazing experience.
And I can see KV writing chat as well. Rand, you were the best scum partner I've ever had. We work so well together.
Thanks, KV.
That's very nice to hear. So the scum at least made some good friends. That's very good to see. Yeah. And piggyback off of that positivity, were there any memorable or funny moments or posts from the game? Other than I hope you spill your goddamn tea.
Well, that was the best one.
That was the best one, but the free jack of all trades slip thing was the funniest as well.
Right. Can't believe you guys lost with 3 jacks of all trades. Man, that's horrible. No, I can't recall why did you think there were 3 jacks of all trades, Exalt?
That was pretty unexpected from them, given that they've said that they've given emphasis to read the game, to read the title on day 1, and then suddenly they haven't read that part.
Yeah. Oh well, happens. All right. I have a question, and the question actually is addressed to me. It's from Carrie. Some of you guys may have seen it. It was posted in the Game 2 thread. Carrie asks, this is related to the clashes that happened in the game, asks, in a championship that is supposed to bring different communities together, what are your feelings about players to make the game miserable for other people? Is it just part of the game? There's a lot of stuff in this question that relates to this specific game, and I can also reveal I didn't carefully read this game. I'm just unfortunately too busy for that. I also can't speak to whether reports were made or moderation or anything to this game, as we don't discuss that. But with regards to the championship and my feelings on players who make the gamers for other people, we of course don't like to see that happen if or when it happens, and it certainly does happen, to speak frankly. And it's quite expected. And actually, we unfortunately didn't post this for the games 1 and 2. We just forgot to post this, but we have actually a text written with the express purpose of preparing players for the experience and like talking about what they can expect from these games. And also sometimes like it can be a very positive experience. Sometimes it can be very sometimes a somewhat negative experience because of the clashes. I think if people are prepared, they are better equipped to handle it. If they go in thinking it'll be just like any other game they're used to playing, they might be disappointed from learning that's not the case. Yeah. What else can I say? Like, we have rules, like we have a code of conduct on Mafia Universe, and that applies to the Mafia Championship. So if anyone's out of line according to rules, like that will be addressed. And we have banned, I think, at least 6 communities based on them sending representatives that so severely violated our rules, our code of conduct, that we just couldn't invite them back. So that is something we do address. Then there's all that in between stuff where, I mean, it's usually handled with us maybe just moderating them, coaching them, and sometimes aggressiveness is just also in the game of Mafia. Like, I myself have been aggressive in some games, have been annoyed in some games. I think many have. I applaud those who have managed to never cross any line whatsoever. I don't know if I say I've crossed the line, but I've been aggressive, like shown sides of my personality that I wouldn't be showing outside of a Mafia game. Because these games can get personal, and sometimes you're accused of lying, and being accused of lying in any situation in life is actually not psychologically a very pleasant situation to be in. Or people not listening to you, not paying attention to you, is also not very pleasant. Like, not a lot of human beings are gonna like any of those situations, right? So this game just, it brings those factors into play, right? Is it just part of the game? Tough to say. Some aggressiveness, I think aggression is part of the game. There's a line, and that line basically is covered by a code of conduct. Some of it is also, of course, not so much in the championship, because this is a unique setting. But like in any community, a lot of this is also self-moderated. So like the community will, in one way or another, address this, like make it clear, like this is not how we want to play games. So it will be made clear to the players. That can't in the same way happen here in this setting. Like, you're just playing this one game, and there's a lot of clashing, and you're maybe stressed, and it's not quite what you expected, and you're already annoyed with like maybe getting used to the software, whatever. Like, there could be a lot of annoyance factors, and those just add up. So there's the potential for this stuff to happen. I can ramble on about this. We don't like to see it when people rub each other the wrong way. It certainly isn't pleasant. But sometimes people also end up getting married together and having kids. So that's the positive side of things, right? There can also a lot of positive stuff can happen from this. I don't know if you guys want to also actually let me add a question from Mandel, and in that way pivot it to you guys. This question. What role does threat aggressiveness level / toxicity play for the function of the game as a game, and the performance of town? Does it favor scum? I guess obviously the answer is yes to the last one, but what are your guys' thoughts on it and how it played out in this game?
I think aggressive and toxicity are two different things. You can play aggressive in the game, aggressively pushing for someone, and toxic is just using personal insults to insult someone. That's not related to the game at all. So I think those two are completely different. I mean, aggressive has its purposes, but being toxic in the game definitely favors scum, because if people just don't want to play the game, then and the majority of players are town, then town have no hope.
Yeah, actually, let me put it like this: how we do it on Mafia Universe and Mafia Championship is you can go after the ball, not the player. So don't call someone something bad. You can say that what they did is bad, or you can like say a lot of stuff about that. You also can't like use like improper words about that. There's also a line there, right? Because some words you shouldn't be using to describe things in general, because that in itself can be worrisome. But yeah, that's basically what we go for here. So I can definitely say that we have coached championship players in this. Go for the ball, not the player. Yeah.
I have to say though, there were some good insults thrown around. Funny ones. I know that some were directed towards me too, and I laughed about it. So I think if you keep a light heart about it, then it's okay. It just depends on the intent sometimes. I do know that I crossed the line a few times through anger more than anything, but at the same time, some of us threw some funny insults that I think all parties took it as that, like as a joke, right?
I think actually you have an issue there, because of language barriers. In many of your posts, now that we're talking about this openly, I thought you were the worst actually, and that is because I probably didn't see the joke of it, and that's because I'm not native English, I think. I just didn't see the sarcasm, the irony, whatever you want to call it, behind what you were saying, because I don't. It's not my language. I don't feel the finesses of it. And then if you throw in all these swear words, then yeah, I'm just looking at those posts thinking, what the hell? So yeah, I think it's a fine thing in your own community and something you probably shouldn't really bring in that same level to a game with complete strangers, simply because many of us just don't know who you are and where that comes from and don't see the humor of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've somewhat followed the game, so and Exalt, you've also come to this yourself that you've maybe crossed the line some places. So like now, having seen your post after the game and having talked with you and having seen you chat very friendly and nice with these people in our chat, right? I already get a more sense of you, a familiarity that already like sort of portrays your posts and your game persona in a new light. So there's that the familiarity helps. But of course, that familiarity doesn't exist from the get-go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no offense, Exalt. I like you a lot, but that's how I felt when I read your posts.
TheWabbit, I don't know if you have anything to add to this topic.
Wait, I kind of forgot what the question is.
What role does threat aggressiveness or toxicity play for the function of the game as a game? Or just what were your thoughts on like how it impacted this game, whatever you would characterize it?
Yeah, I think what happened this game was that everyone went overboard. Everyone who went aggressive really went overboard. I mean, if you look at day one, Exalt and Carry were basically insulting each other, which kind of made me ignore them for the time being, so just so that I could read the game properly. And then I think that aggressiveness in itself is a double-edged sword. It can help you catch people off guard, but it also burns people out more. And then what happened here is that since aggressiveness, the level of aggressiveness really didn't wane down. It's just continuously high. What happened is that everyone just kind of burned out and then suddenly became uninterested, which I think is the reason why people are frozen, people are starting to post less, and that it's become, and in hindsight, since it's basically town fighting each other, it's just like wolves can just sit down and watch the town self-destruct.
Yeah, so I guess maybe especially in championship setting, you can play aggressive to better your own reads, to like get those reactions you want and desire. But it can also certainly have a negative aspect to it, because maybe you create or help create a threat atmosphere that isn't beneficial to your team as a whole, and that can also be difficult to predict. Right, you're just playing the game, and you're maybe playing it like you're used to with your friends, and then you rub people the wrong way, and then they rub you the wrong way, and it just spirals out of control. Like I can see that easily happening. So maybe experience is also key there. And now everyone's played this game. Maybe that also doesn't, and it usually doesn't actually happen in the wildcards or the finals. So that's a positive thing, right? People have that experience, and yeah. Let's talk about some of the lynches, like the actual moments in the game, the key votes. And I want to start here with what I think may be this season's worst mislynch thus far, in my opinion, of course, which is the Exalt mislynch, because you can say a lot about Exalt's aggressiveness, but I thought it made him hella towny. So I was shocked as hell to see him lynch there. I don't know. Wabbit, you weren't alive at that point, and actually, no one here voted for Exalt. So you can't, I guess, be blamed necessarily. Of course, well, Rhand can't be blamed at all. Like, he's happy to see that, right? Wabbit is dead, and yeah. Wabbit, as someone who's dead at that point, what were your thoughts upon seeing that unfold?
Yeah, as I read the thread on real time, it was really frustrating because if you could see my stance on them starting from the very first day, they've been pretty much clear town. It's just that they are overboard, and it's very exhausting to do that as scum, let alone do it consistently. I mean, it's fine. It still has equity if it's done day one and then Exalt kind of just burns out afterwards. But no, it's just that for all the time that Exalt has been there, the fire's there. It's strong. It's very difficult to do that as Scum without probably what do you say this? Yeah, without sacrificing part of your team. It it just burns out and then it doesn't look good on you, which clearly what's happened is that Exalt was lynched, and then yeah, basically that's it. And the one of the main reasons why I read Exalted Sound specifically on day two was that I called him a Chunibu. um and I immediately thought that he was sound because back in my home site I can see him playing similarly to me, and then I think that, oh, this is very hard to fake as Wolf, and then this is somehow similar to how I normally play, so probably Town.
Hmm.
And
Right.
then what was really frustrating was that everyone else just kind of didn't see it, or nobody cared to think about it, and then everyone just went on to Exalt on day three as part of Mendel's experiment, I think. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was a very strange lynch. I still don't understand. He wasn't in the contestants of being lynched close to the end of day, and all of a sudden Mendel realizes I cannot lynch just playing it cool. So let's go for Exalt, who I'm not scum reading instead. I mean, I was like, what are you doing, man? And I didn't want him that. That's the worst of it all. I was actually upset with KV because she lynched Exalt, and I'm like, no, I need Exalt alive, and OIX needs to die. What are you doing? It's the one moment in the whole game where I was upset with KV, because also for us this was the wrong lynch. OIX needed to go quickly enough before he would get replaced, because you never know what the replacement's gonna bring. And Exalt was my long-term plan. I needed that guy. And she lynches him, and I'm like, come on. And then the rest of town lynches him, and I'm like, no, this guy is the towniest town that ever towned. Why are you lynching this? It was the weirdest lynch ever. I still don't understand how Mendel, actually, it's Mendel pulled it off, and yeah, I don't know why. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I had an interesting perspective on that because I was working at the time, so I couldn't really do much at the end of the day. But when I saw those votes coming in, because Mendel did want to lynch me, but as he wasn't going to get the support for it, he went on to Exalt, and I didn't understand the Keith's or ICT's reasons for going on that lynch wagon at all. And then I saw KV post a massive reads list, and then a couple posts later, she voted for him. She just called me scum and Exalt Town. I was thinking, what's going on here? There's something off about this. And then the lynch happened, and it was odd. But the reason I was town reading Exalt was because of the free joke slip. Because of that slip, it seemed too ridiculous for Scum to say. And if Scum said it, that would say that the two other Scum members would have also thought that there was free jokes in the game, and no one else was making posts to imply that. So that's why I thought he was working on his own.
Hmm. It's very interesting.
I do have an interesting perspective on that, actually, because I'm not always aggressive in games. Like that was kind of a little bit overboard for me, but my thought going in was uh, to become so towny that I was basically unlynchable. Um, and I realized that it went a little overboard in doing that. However, I think that I, for the most part, achieved that. Not with everyone, obviously. Um, but that was my goal. So when day three happened, I didn't expect to be lynched. Actually, I couldn't make the end of day that one day. It's possible I could have thrown off the wagon on me. I'm not sure, but I feel like no matter what I did, Atani was gonna die that day. Like OIX was the next one to go. And if I didn't die that day, Mendel or Carrie or whoever, those two were thinking I was scum most of the time, most of the game, I think. So I would have been lynched eventually, I think, if I had gone to Lilo with one of them. Um, Other than that, I feel like KV, nobody really suspected her, only slightly, due to the NKs kind of pointing to her. But once she did hammer me, or not hammer, but close to it, um, I feel like hypothetically she was caught at that point. It didn't work out that way, but I feel like that was kind of the turning point that could have changed things. If KV would have been lynched, it's possible the longer Rand survived, regardless of everything else he posted, the longer he was around, the more suspicious it would get because he was logically the next NK target if he was town. I mean, they were going through the town core. I mean, JPIC could have been next, but Rand would have had to have gone before Carry, logically, I think. Um, and a few others. Like they were running out of people to kill to not point back to them. That's what I kind of felt like. So, um, my thought at the time was, okay, Carrie's caught. After that, we'll see what happens. But the longer Rand survived, I figured he's gonna be caught. It didn't work out that way, but I think whether I was lynched or not, the game would have gone largely the same way. That's my perspective, anyways.
Yeah. So to actually move on to the next question, which is very much in line with what Exalt just talked about. What do you feel was the key moment or like the defining moment in the game? And do you think there was ever a point where the tide could have been shifted?
I think if KV was lynched day 4, things might have been a bit more different on day 4. Because we didn't lynch KV, I could understand Carrie dying because that to me felt like, okay, we're on the right tracks here. I didn't suspect Rand at the time when Carrie died, but hindsight I should have. But I think KV not being lynched day 4 was the real defining moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really where it could have all just rolled into each other. If you lynched KV, I mean, I would have helped lynching KV. I had to. I mean, I went on and on and on about how OIX had to be the lynch. But if one of the Finns would have voted for KV, I would have hammered KV. I had no choice. Luckily, the Finns just weren't really into lynching KV, which I think I had a big hand in. But yes, if you would have lynched KV there, I mean, we would have killed. I would have killed Carry for sure, because KV Carry became a dichotomy basically. If one of them flips scum, if you lynch KV, then Carry is an automatic night kill, and you wouldn't blink. You wouldn't suspect me for being alive when Carry gets lynched for killing KV. Sorry, other way around. If Carry gets night killed for lynching KV, that's a normal night kill. So it would have maybe given me one more night, but I mean, that also means I need another mislynch before Lilo. IOX would have been replaced. Who knows what comes there? Icy was basically my last real mislynch. So I think, yes, if you would have lynched KV that day, we would have been in big trouble. I was actually banking on Nano winning the game if KV would lynch, would be the lynch there. Yeah. Really, because I would topple. There's just I cannot survive that long. But Exalt said it's very true. I was too deep.
Well,
I had to be the night kill.
I think if we lynch around or at any point, I think that would have been a big tip off for Nano to being scum as well, because you made the association there.
Yeah. But I know, Rand, you've also said that KB actually attacked you at some point to lessen your tank cred, yes. So that you being alive wasn't as suspicious, which I also applaud. And like even how you're talking about now setting Nano up in that case, and like it seems funny because like you had this game so much in the bag, but like you having all these extra plans, I think is a testament to how well you guys played and how you like set yourself up in the first place for this level of success that you did.
I really believe it's not just my win. KV was just as important to the whole thing.
For sure. And and I guess we've always touched on how you guys reacted when Carrie was killed. Because that was surprising to a lot of people in Spec Chat. They didn't expect Carrie to get killed that night. But there were also a lot of people. Well, yeah, people expected Rand to be killed that night in Spec Chat. I want to bring up something fun. I want to bring up Spec Chat's guesses for who the scum were. So if you have Twitch chat open, you can see this now. Captain Lunch, the day one Lynch, has 0 votes. That is because he was the day one Lynch. So he weren't a part of the guesses. It's not because no one thought he was scummy or so these votes are interesting to see. We saw the game 1 votes or guesses yesterday, and that would have actually solved the game. Such is not the case here. Rhand, I guess fittingly, was the least suspected scum. Nano wasn't suspected that much either. KV was somewhat suspected, but I mean, didn't get lynched, so who cares, right? Long hair don't care. And let's see. Rizzler got lynched at the end. Quintron got lynched. OIX, is that? I don't know how you actually say it. Got lynched. So I guess the surprises here is Exalt, right? He's the only one from like bottom half getting lynched. Yeah. Yeah, just very interesting. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on the other lynches or whether you were surprised about those. I mean, I thought Il Quinton was also somewhat tiny, but I have an outside perspective, and I just want to say, especially regarding the Exalt lynch, when I say I think that was the worst mislynch, I'm sure I've mislynched someone before that. Another person would think that was the worst decision ever made in a Mafia game, and I'm also detached from the game. And in the game, especially in that moment, like you're trying to make certain worlds fit, and you're like boxed in by just how the game is. You can't go on Rhand or you can't go on other people, even if you did suspect that. So it's, I mean, it can be a difficult situation to be in. So you can't just disregard the whole context of someone voting someone. All right, let's move on to another question. This is also from Mendel. Is sharing reads good or bad for town? Does it help scum sharing reads? And I guess the typical argument here is that if everyone's openly sharing their reads, then you make it easy for Mafia to know who to kill. But of course, there are also power rules in these games, right? So it can't just only be about that. So that already makes it more complex than that. But I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this and what you personally.
I would say yes and no. It helps town because I mean, I wouldn't have probably caught KV at the time when she made her massive reads list and called me scum and then Exalt town. And then a couple of posts later, she made a vote on Exalt that she had a town read on. That was a big red flag. And then when she said she started having doubts on me, starting to have doubts on her scum read on me. And I asked her to point out to where that post was. And she said, yeah, it was in this post. And when I was looking at the rest of her posts after that, between the doubt and the reads list, there was like 2 times she mentioned where I was scum. So, and I think, you know, that having a reads list there can be a beneficial for town. But I think the reason this question was asked from Mendel is because of Carrie's stance on the matter of having reads. It can tell how scum will approach the night kills. So I can see both sides being beneficial to both alignments.
I actually believe sharing your reads is way more important to help town than it is to help scum. When you're Mafia, you should know already who to kill. I mean, it doesn't really matter all that much if everyone's pumping out read lists. You already know that this guy is widely town red and has a scum read on you. I mean, you know that. If you don't know that, then something strange is happening in the game. So the important info you already have. What read lists do is unite town. Town will find each other. Town will just with the reasonings why you think someone is town or scum or something like that. There's so much to read into that. Is this person really thinking about this, or is this a mechanical made read list? There's so much in there. And on top of that, you can find a town core, a core of people that just knows that they are town together. I think it's way more helpful for town than it ever can be for the Mafia team. The Mafia team knows who to kill. They don't need its read lists.
Exalt and Wabbit, would you agree with that, or do you agree with Carrie?
Yeah, I'd agree with what Rhand said, because Mafia is a game of communication. If you don't communicate your thoughts, you're basically handing the game to the wolves, because it doesn't matter if the reeds will make someone likelier to be killed, because the wolves have their own way of figuring out who to kill. If they wouldn't, just like what Rand said, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, I mean,
And then
yeah, I mean, it's
then-
all. Oh, sorry. You go ahead. Wabbit.
it's my
No, now you got it, Wabbit. Come on, take it away. Sorry.
okay. So yeah, because when you share your reads, you're basically trying to connect with people, and it's not just sharing reads as the surface level. You have to explain how you got to that read, and I think this has been mentioned in a previous podcast, and that it's the thought process that matters. It's not just how you think someone is town or not, but also how people will find out your town just because of the way you think. And then it's a good way to world build, especially if you're not confident in finding scum, because it's statistically harder to find mafia than town most of the time. And yeah, basically.
Yeah. No, yeah, I would personally agree, and I think it's I think it's interesting that there are different takes on this, and so I like discussion on this. And my own personal belief is that Mafia is already a game where town is lacking information. I don't think you should try to increase that information gap. And the way you phrase it, I think is actually a good way to phrase it. Is that it's a way to build bonds, and you can see other people's thought process, and it's not just important in terms of being able to read that person. It's in terms of it's important to be able to relate to that person and build a bond, because towners also need to work together, and they need to be able to make stuff happen together, right? And it helps that you can look at someone and say, oh yeah, no, I dig this dude, I dig where this dude is headed, I want to be a part of that. And if you don't have any of such movement in a game, it's difficult for town to work well together, right? And sometimes you really need that, because a lot of time you're making compromises, because not everyone can always get their number one suspect lynched. Sometimes they have to compromise and go down to number 2, number 3, and you're only more likely to do that if you can at least see why the other person wants to do that. Right. Yeah. But we've talked a bit about world building, and here I have a question. There was a lot of talking about worlds, different worlds, potential scum teams. Is that a good strategy when you haven't lynched your first scum yet? Or is it too distracting? Like, can you try to make too grand conclusions without even having any information to start with?
I think it would be great hypothetical ground, because you're banking on things that you don't know yet, and then it could be easily used as a signpost to use whenever you've lynched your scum, because you have your town core, wherein you think these people are town through individual means and sometimes even through associations. And then you have your POE, which is basically people you're not that sure about that are town, or maybe you suspect as wolf. And then what happens is that you try to think of it more as a dynamic process in which, oh, this one's a real community, and then you associate them more in much more concrete stances rather than just trying to view them separately. And what happens if you world build is that in cases if it was wrong, at least you still have at least a guide on what you think is the current play or what isn't. And yeah, basically that.
I'll quote Limisa in Twitch chat saying, I'm in the team that pre-flip associations are almost always bad. So Rhand, Exalt, Justplayingitcool, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but you can think about that while I just comment a bit on what Wabbit said. I think my problem with this is a lot of people do, when a scum dies, they do what is called a spew reread. You maybe have other terms for it on your different communities, but you read the dead scum to find out whether they're likely to be on scum team with other players in the game, whether their interactions with the other players make those certain players more likely to be town, right? Those reads are commonly done. I think even when those reads are done after the fact that a scum has been lynched, it's with varying success. I think doing those pre-flip associations before you have the information are like it's just such shaky and often false information because you're doing it without having closely reread. It's just a feeling often. And like you're as you're mentioning these world, like it's happening fluidly, these scum are still alive and they can adapt to what you're saying, or they can see that you're talking about other players. You're talking about two townies here, or they probably can be, maybe they can be in teams together, maybe it can't be in team. And you're actually giving them the information they need to adapt into a worldview that suits their team well, right? So I have my own concerns with relying too much on pre-flip associations when casting votes. Like I'm of the belief, always vote who you think is most likely scum. Move down to number 2 if you can't get that to heaven, etc. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are. Rhand, Exalt, just playing cool.
Yeah, I agree. I abused the hell out of this in this game because I went into rereading the game with that. Yeah, I love that function, by the way, on MU where you can multi-ISO or ISO or whatever you pronounce it in English. And I just took all the living players and started reading the game again. And I started making associations like unalignments, like this one not with that one not with this one, but it's so easy to manipulate because I went in there with the idea of, okay, these are the possible scum teams I still want to exist, so I'm gonna rule out all the others, and that's easy. And that's the big problem with pre-flip associations is that you go in there with an idea in your brain and all you're gonna do is confirmation bias yourself. Because there's too much to read. There's too many players alive. There's too many unalignments that you're trying to figure out. You'll bump into things that just confirm what you're already thinking, and you'll just think that they're more true than they were before. I think it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not without a dead scum.
Yeah. If you want a personal rule I have, I implemented this after some time. When you do spooky reads, Thingyman's advice is if it's a person who's made more than 100 posts, only take 2 reads away from it. Don't push it more than that. Make 2 reads that you think you can count on from this, and then dump the rest, because the Mafia are thinking about how they're interacting with others. So don't take those. But would they say this? Just leave that out. Only take maximum 2 reads from such a reread. It's my own personal way of doing it. Just playing it cool. Exalt, I don't know if you have any thoughts to add. Otherwise, I have one more question I also want to get to.
I think it's been said perfectly, to be honest.
Yeah.
Don't think I could add any more.
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to world build, though. I mean, there's a point where, at the very least, you have the town core, right? You have to find other people you think are town. So that's world building in itself, right?
Sure.
And when you scum hunt, I mean, yeah, you could only look for one person and say, I'll move from there once this person flips red, right? Or whoever does. But as town, you're constantly adapting anyways. Like you're gonna throw reads out the next day as soon as somebody flips anyways. That happens no matter what, every single day. Somebody could flip red or green, it doesn't matter. Somebody's gonna flip, you're gonna change your reads based on that, hopefully. So I feel like world building doesn't hurt in that respect. Like if you go too deep into it, you keep tunneling it forever, yeah, it's gonna hurt. And obviously that's happened with a lot of things this game too. But I kind of feel like it can't be avoided too. And there's some players that can't do anything without it. Like they have to do it to get to the point where they read people to begin with. So I'm kind of mixed on that. I think it's good and bad. Obviously, Scum can use it, but Scum can use it at anything really. They can use reads too, but I still think that reads are important. You have to do that as town.
That's a fair point that you bring up, that some people just naturally are inclined towards wanting to do this. And like, I'm also a believer that you shouldn't withhold yourself from giving the information that you think is relevant. Towns should just post what they want. So in that sense, I agree. And obviously sometimes it does work out. And with regards to world building, of course I agree. And I think Wabbit also touched on this. So when I brought up this question, I wasn't thinking of doing like when you do PoEs, like when you build a town core. Like that's, to me, that's just you list the X number of people that you think are really, really town. That isn't related to world building. Like how do they fit together? Do they fit as town together? No, it's just because they're all town. So that's the core I want to work with, right? So I separate those two things in that regard. Okay. Dead town tend to get ignored. Do you agree with this statement? And if you do you think that should be the case? Or do you not?
I think it was ignored in this game. Other games, no. The dead wouldn't be ignored, but in this specific game, it was definitely ignored. I'm not sure why that happened, but
In this game, it was actually abused. I think there was one exception, but I forgot who it was. But apart from one post, I think me and KV were the only two who actually dug up posts. And that has impact, you know. When we post something, KV quoted TheWabbit more than once, I think, and I quoted Ephemera at one point. If you dig up these posts of people that died at night, it has impact on the alive players. So don't let's come have a the monopoly on that, because there's other stuff in those people's posts that might point to us. We just abuse them for what we want. I think there's lots of value in there, especially the ones that were night kills.
I don't know if you other guys have any thoughts on that question. If not, I'll end it with one final question, unless anyone in chat has a final question they also want to get answered. This is another question from Mendel. I'll make it brief. He's basically differentiating between two types of pushes, a pressure push and an analytical push. A pressure push, exemplified by, at least in his opinion, Exalt doing 3 big pressure pushes on day 1 on Ice-T, Carry, and Mendel, which is getting like aggressively pushing a player, presumably trying to read the reaction. Something I do myself a lot. And contrast that to analytical push, quoting evidence and making case. And yeah, he has his own personal opinion on which is best. But what I want to get is your guys' opinion on pressure pushes versus analytical pushes. And do you even agree with this differentiation? Is it too simplifying, or how do you categorize this, and how do you approach the game yourself in regards to these pushes?
They're two different playstyles in a way, but they're also both valid. I think they're two different things that you can use at the same time. I don't think anybody just only pressure pushes or only uses their logic to read the game. I think it happens. They both happen. I don't think there's only one specific way to play Mafia or one specific style to stick to the entire time. I feel like, and at the same time, I understand why some don't like pressure pushing. However, I also feel like not doing it doesn't do anything either. Like there's certain players that they just won't say anything if you don't push them. It just happens. And some people you just have to push to get a reaction or something out of them to get a better read on them. Otherwise, what are you logically reading in the first place? There's not a whole lot there sometimes.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it doesn't always lead to scum, but it could lead to a town read too. So there's multiple ways to look at it in my mind.
Yeah. So I agree with that completely. And I guess for me personally, what I would say, and I think this is also the case for many other players, but like how I play is I pressure push to begin with, or at some point to like get information flowing, to get the thread to have information that you can then analyze and make a case based off, right? So in my mind, they go hand in hand. Like, and I don't always do pressure pushes. I sometimes do pressure pushes. I do them when I need to, when I feel I need to get someone out of the comfort zone because I need something. Because we've had one on post and I can't make an alignment guess based on any of that. So I need something else to happen, and it can manifest in many different ways. But basically, I think the game of Mafia is time. What you want to do is have people post about something, posting in relation to something that isn't the usual business. Because if it's just the usual business, they've been trained in that and they know how to respond, and they can just make this cookie cutter message that they've done 1,000 times before. You want to move them into like where they'll be on shaky ground, because in my mind you can make a more reliable read based on how they act in those situations. So that's how, in my mind, I view these pushes. I view them as being very complementary to each other.
Yeah, they
Definitely
evolve
agree with
over the
that.
game. Yeah. In the beginning, you have lots of pressure pushes from everyone, and then near the end, I hope there's not too many of that anymore, because then something went really wrong in the game. It should all be analytical. So
Yeah. And of course, I mean, Mendel is also asking this partly because how this game went, right? And there can be examples of, and I won't go into whether I agree with this or not, but there's always going to be an example of a certain strategy not working out in a certain game, right? No strategy is foolproof, at least in the game of Mafia, I think. I haven't seen it, certainly. So it's just about how it's done, and sometimes because it's a certain group of people, a certain group of circumstances, maybe it doesn't work out, and a strategy can also be employed in different ways. Like, pressure pushes aren't, in my opinion, by definition, something either good or bad. It depends on how it is employed in the given situation and what people choose to do with it. I don't know if you guys have any parting thoughts you want to leave us. I certainly want to thank you all for joining me on this podcast. It was a pleasure to have you. I enjoy doing these game postmortems or analysis discussion or whatever we're calling them. I hope you'll maybe be on a future podcast. I hope to do many more of these. Maybe we'll even do one big game at some point or whatever. Do a live Mafia game. That'll also be fun to test you guys' skills in another format. Hope to see you around in Spec Chat, maybe in future games. And yeah, just want to say thanks to you and thanks to everyone who tuned in to this podcast. Next weekend, there will not be any podcast because I'm going on vacation. So I will not be around. But the week after and the following weeks, we will be returning strongly. Yeah. Thanks, guys, again. And congratulations, of course, to Rhand and TheWabbit. Good luck to Exalt and Just Playing It Cool. There's, of course, still the jury picks coming up. They can choose 23 additional people. So I wish you guys luck. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And goodbye, everyone.